Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to go over some of the pictures I've done. So I have them divided up into two categories: pictures by me and pictures from, say, a PDF or a coloring book. So we're going to start with the PDF artist or the coloring book or coloring book artist. So this one is by Coloriage Wild by Emmanuelle Colin, and it's like a lot of mine. It's watercolor or water soluble crayons, watercolor pencils, any kind of gelatos, any kind of wet media like that. I typically like to write down on the back here what I did, and that way it gives me an idea. If I'm looking at it 2 months down the road, I'm like, oh, what'd I do? So, and it says watercolor, water soluble crayons, gelatos, and then Prismas over top. So I'm very happy with the way that came out. The background is most 9/10 gelato. I did a nice thorough base. I really didn't have to do a lot to the leaves in terms of, like, in fact, I don't think I did anything to the leaves. I think it's all watercolor. I did touch up the bird with pencils, and I touched up her skin. The hair, I think I used a few, but not too much. The lilies are mostly watercolor. I was very, very pleased. I did struggle with the skin, but, you know, that's okay. So, next we have Johanna Bashford's Christmas page that I did. It's from her Christmas book, and this was a 2-year-old whip. I decided to go ahead and finish it for the Christmas in July event. It's part, like I said, it's part of a two-page spread. I believe it's the right side, because I can see where it's perforated. So it's the right side. I did all kinds of things to this. I did ink tints, colored pencil, watercolor, water soluble crayons, watercolor pencil, glitter pens, gel pens. I mean, multiple different kinds of colored pencils. Now, the one little trick is making your things like the snow, for example, making stuff pop. There's one easy way. So in this case, I have some candy canes and some snow, and I wanted them to really pop. So I took my white Posca, and in the case of the candy canes, also a red Posca, and I outlined, after I was done coloring it and painting it and doing whatever I wanted to do to it, then I took my Posca and I just went over the lines very carefully. And in the case of right here, I also used a green Posca and a red Posca. It really makes a huge difference when you're doing things like this. In fact, on this one, I outlined this area right here with a matching glitter pen. So it really forces you to see the image and not just the black lines, which is kind of the first thing, if we're all being honest, it's the first thing we see. So just do whatever you're going to do to the image, like say this section, for example. Then take your Posca pen and just kind of carefully go over it. It helps to keep a Q-tip handy in case the line kind of goes where you don't want it to. I also recommend the pointed Q-tips, which you can get like in the makeup section. They have a really fine point, and you can get into the areas a little bit deeper. Let's see if I can find one. Okay, I mean Q-tips like these, so that if you need to get into, like, say you're whiting out a line and the Posca explodes, and be forewarned, these can do that. So it's not a foolproof thing, but you can take like a piece of scratch paper and just kind of dab it first there, or pump it on that instead of your paper, over your paper or whatever. Don't shake it over your page too. It helps, but it's not foolproof. So anyway, if that happens, or you just take your Q-tip and you just kind of go like that, and voila, makeup section at Walmart. Or you can get them on Amazon too. So I just go over that, let it dry, and there you have it. It makes a huge difference in how you see the image. Now, I didn't do that for everything. Like, I didn't do that with these gumdrops, because I figured that section was busy enough that it didn't really matter. But because things like this stand out a little bit more naturally, I wanted that to be covered up. Now here I used glitter pen and a little bit of glitter paint, so just to give it that extra sparkle. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, there's a fair amount of sparkle in this image. I love it. So hopefully you can see all the pretty sparklies. Now, my last bit of tip, well, my last two tips are patience, and patience. These kind of images take a while, so you just do one section at a time. Like, focus on that one section. Do it to about 90%, and then move on to something else, into where you've got everything kind of like 90% done, and then you're like, okay, what finishing touches, and you just gradually ramp it up to 95%, and then 100%. That way it gives you room in the tooth of the paper to add in things like, like, say for example down here, I realized that I really did not have enough depth near the area of the house that was under the roof, under the snow and the roof. I wanted this snow area right here to look like it was popping out from the house. So I used my white Posca on it, and that helped a lot. I got rid of those black lines. I added some glitter, because glitter makes everything better. And I realized I still needed a little bit of depth, so I grabbed some pencils and I went in under it right here, and it made it, I was happy with it because it added that depth. So that's my advice for doing pictures like this, is just do it all 90% and then just gradually fill in the 10% that's left, so that you can, add in everything you need, and you're not like, oh no, the tooth is all gone. Then you cry, because what are you gonna do? So the last tip is the snow. Now, this snow is supposed to remind you of the Charlie Brown Christmas movie, where it's snowing outside. That's why they're kind of all erratic and not all the same, and it's supposed to look like that. My biggest tip for this is to take some molding paste, I use some acrylic medium body paint, and a little glitter watercolor, and I mixed it up separately, and I just used like a Q-tip, either one of these for the small ones, or one of the regular Q-tips, a small little paintbrush that's maybe a little bit stiff and kind of is one of your older paintbrushes, because the key to making this look natural is to have where each snowball is not the same. Like, randomness is the key here. So the molding paste keeps things sort of to where it pops, and you just randomly do them, and don't worry if they're a little lopsided, or some are a little darker than the others, some are a little bigger. The more random you can make this, and you can see where I added it into the rest of the picture very carefully, mind you. just randomly kind of doing it, not in any particular order, just wherever. Doink, doink, there's another spot. Doink, 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 doink. And just, it requires a little bit of patience. And I think it looks pretty good. So that's my best tip for that, doing like a snow. And you want that nice soft kind of look. That's the best way to do that. So the next picture comes from this book, which I think I did a flip through of, but I'm not 100% positive. But as you can see, it doesn't always tear. You have to be careful when you tear your, they are perforated, but you have to be very careful when you tear them out, because, well, things can go wrong. So, but the whole book is kind of, I mean, it's straight up watercolor paper. It's really nice. It's by Robin Pickens. I got it off of Amazon. Again, it's just my usual MO, watercolor. I did the back, in this case, I did the background first, because you see all these little leaves and dots, and I was like, yeah, no. So I did the background first with watercolor, and then I went over it with some soft pencils, and I did the heart. I outlined a lot of this with gel pens and glitter pens, mostly gel pens, just for something different. Make sure you're done with your watercolor work before you do that, if you decide to do watercolor, because it is on watercolor paper. So you can go crazy. It's good, pretty good paper. But I highly recommend doing the background first when it's busy like this. And then you just work your way in with the watercolor, and then the pencils, then the gel pens. That in that order. I highly recommend that particular order. I have found that it's what works best for me. So I really do like how that came out, though. It's just I think it's like Paul Rubens. Let's see if I wrote down. Oh, see, this is why you write down what you do to it. Write it down. That's why you write it down. So, this picture. Oh shoot, I got something on it. Anyway, I gotta erase that when I get a chance. This image is very special to me, though. A couple weeks ago, my husband and I had to put down our cat. One of our cats, our older one. She had some really bad cancer. I mean, it was really bad. And she was 95% black. And she had eyes very much like this cat. That's why I did her this way. Yeah, she was close to 17 and just had cancer, and there was no way we were going to be able to fix her. So we got our ashes back a couple days ago. So yeah. So anyway, I do want to talk about a couple of things. One is the wings, and when you're doing a picture like this, balance is really good. So first of all, the balance part. As you can see, the cat's black, so I did her hair kind of black with like silver streaks, because it kind of balances with the hair and the wings and the cat. You know, they all kind of balance together. And doing black cats, by the way, is not that easy. I'm just a little tip for you. Black cats have very little actual black in them. What it is, if you look at, I'm trying to think here. Get yourself a piece of paper. You'll see what I mean. Excuse the crude one here, but cut a square. Use like an X-Acto knife or some scissors or whatever. Cut a square in it, and then hold, like, I'll show you. So you just cut yourself a little square like this. This is something that was taught to me by people that are far better, you know, watercolor than I am, and just color in general. So, and I highly recommend scissors like these. These are the bomb. Like, they are absolutely amazing. You can get these any craft store or Amazon. These tiny scissors do their magic. Anyway, so if you take something like this and you just stick it up against, man, if I had a picture I would show you, but pretend like this is a photograph, and you just go up to like that, and you're like, wow, and it helps you block out the rest of the picture, and you're like, there's more to this than meets the overall eye. So when you isolate a section like that, something like this, I guarantee you, you're gonna see it differently. I promise you. So black hats are just a lot of gray, different blues, some white. That, believe it or not, there's more, and I discovered that by doing this little trick that was shown to me. You will see the image in a whole new way. You'll see colors in a different way. I promise you, it's magic. So, but I did mostly Holbeins and Prisma, and for the wings, I first of all did white. I believe I used Prismas for the wings, and I did some slate gray, some, I believe 70% cool gray and 20% cool gray. But either way, the trick for doing these is to start with especially when it's on white paper like this is, it's kind of white to cream. You want to start with the mid to shadow areas. So start with your darker cool grays, or you can use warm grays. It's up to you. I chose the cool grays because I had kind of a cool overall feel to the picture, so I figured it would go best. But I did the wings in the cool grays and the white with a little bit of black, and then I got out the handy dandy Posca and carefully went over the lines. And you don't need to do this more than once because you still want to sort of see the line in this case, but not fully. Like, that's kind of the trick, is to make it like 95% disappear. Like one coat will do for this effect. And when you're doing your mid to shadow areas, go gently at first. Do your white and your lighter areas, and then if you need to go back in, go ahead. But I will always start with the shadow areas on white paper, and the opposite would be true if you were using gray or tan tone paper. You would do the opposite. So just take your time, go slow, then go over the lines. And if you need to make any little adjustments, of course you can, but I would be careful. And I also did take my white Holbein, my soft white Holbein, and I did go over some of the whiter areas that I wanted to be more pronounced. But I highly recommend a Holbein soft white. You will need to either use something sharp like this or like a craft knife, because it is, as its name implies, is extremely soft. However, for things like this, it works very well with the Posca because it's soft enough that it doesn't take the Posca up. Because if you're not careful and you use a harder pencil, even an oil-based pencil that is not as much wax as the soft white is, it can actually take up the Posca off the paper. So that's my advice to that. But yeah, this is kind of a little memorial. Oh, one more thing I wanted to run by you. So, a little tip before I move on is if you're thinking about doing something with a background and you're really not sure, I suggest some tracing paper. It's inexpensive. You can get it at most any, craft store, Amazon. Excuse me, we're shortening this. So you take your, your pencil. Like in this case, I wanted to do I was thinking about trying to do like a little rainbow, and I was gonna, just sketch it out a little bit. And it gives you an idea of where to place things, And you're like, yeah, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. You're not erasing on your good finished image, or semi-finished in this case. And see, what you do is you can either just put it to the side here and just kind of, freehand copy it that way, or you can get a backlight and put it underneath, and it has for me, it'll show through the image, and you can just sort of trace it that way. I have seen some people that will take the paper and kind of go like this. They'll sort of tape it down, and they'll pick it up, they'll color, they'll put it down. I think that's very laboring. To me, that just makes, work smarter, not harder. So I would either just put it beside me and trace it that way, or kind of copy it that way, or just put it under me. Backlights are amazing things. I'm telling you, if you don't have one and you can afford to, you should get one. They're really, really useful tools. I mean, really, really useful. Assuming the image is one-sided. If it's not, then you're going to get the images bleeding together. So that's just a little note there. So let me put this aside. Okay. This one is from, I believe it's from Fragile World. And the reason I say that is because of this image. So, again, my tip is to do your wet work first, then go over it with pencils, and then once you're happy with that, I mean, you don't have to go over with pencils. You don't have to. I mean, you can just, do what you want to do. But this is what really works for me, is to do my wet work first, then my pencil work, and then any like glitter pens, gel pens, anything like that I do last. And it's worked very well for me. See that little glitter. So hopefully you can see some of my glitter stuff. It's all over the place in this picture, but it's strategically placed though. That's the thing with when you do like glitter and things of that sort, you really need to strategically place your glitter, because if you just throw glitter everywhere, it's just going to look like, oh my God, what a mess. It's just going to be too much, and the eye will just not know where. Your eyes need a place to rest. So if you make things like super glittery or super all over bright, the eye is not going to, and it's not going to be as pleasing to the eye. So you want to just, strategically place them. Like I have some here, and I have a little bit in the water, and a little bit up here, right in here, but not there. You know what I mean? So that the eye, and I have the balance between the bright and the like the warm. You just balance. Really makes or breaks a picture. And if you don't have things balanced, it's just, I don't know, to me it just doesn't look as good. That's just me. So one of the other pictures that I have is, I just finished this one not too long ago. It's from Enchanted Earth, and please don't ask me to pronounce the lady's name. It looks like a massive long series of letters. She lives in Greece. So enough said. Her middle and her first name and her last name are like this long. I kid you not. Like, it's just, I'm like, yep, no. But just look up Enchanted Earth. It's there. She has several books. Nature's Mandalas. I'm trying to think of the other one. Circle of Life. her books are amazing, and they're one-sided, which is really nice. They do perforate, all of them perforate and come out easily. They, as you can see, they took the water very, very well. It got a little wrinkly, but see, this is her first name. I don't know if you guys can see right there, and because my handwriting is like totally sloppy. First, and then her last name is like this long. It's like, no. Yeah. Can you imagine having to learn to do that name in school? Wow. Yeah. So anyway, again, I just did the watercolor, and then I went in with my pencils, and then I went in with my glitter. And the key to this picture was shading, especially and strategically placing my glitter and my shiny things. See, the eyes can rest here, and they can kind of rest out here, and then I've got some sparkle glitter here and a lot down here, but not so much up here. And then the depth right in through here, I have that big glittery eyeball, as I call it. And then I shaded it dark, and then light, and then really light, and then moderately light. And you just gradually ease those colors out, and then I made them a little bit lighter here, and then I got, so that when it got darker again, I could do that, and then lighter, and there it is. It's just being very strategic with your shading and with your colors, and it can really make or break a picture, and this is a prime example of that. So yeah, I really like how that came out. It's the whole book's really cool, though. It's one of my favorite by her. Let's see. Okay, moving on. We have the Johanna Bashford book for World of Flowers. This was a 2, maybe 3-year-old whip that I had sitting in my drawer, my whip drawer. And I had just worked on a couple of the mushrooms, 2 or 3 of them, with some ink tints, and I just gradually started doing the rest of them with the ink tints, filling them out with the pencil, going around the lines. For example, right here, I don't know if you can tell, but I went over the lines right there with some glitter pen. I made sure that I was all done with, I don't want to tinker no more with it. And also pictures like this, shading is also very important, because these mushrooms are going to cast a shadow, maybe 2. So I just made sure to put in my shadows with my watercolor first, and so that each of them has an appropriate shadow. I didn't put any with the leaves, and I probably should have, but I also used a stencil to draw the fence. I could have freehanded it, but I didn't want to. Stencils are my other tip for if you want to do a quick addition to a picture like this. There is no shame in using a stencil. I have a whole drawer full of them. I have little ones, big ones, medium-sized ones. This fairy right here, in the spirit of transparency, that fairy was a stencil. And I just watercolored her and worked her until I don't think you can really tell that much. It's just, there's no shame in it. You know, my drawing skills are a work in progress. But then I just went over it with my pencils and stuff like that, and so now the other thing I want to talk about, besides making sure you have your shadows appropriately and not forgetting certain ones, I did a tutorial on doing clouds when you're doing a watercolor background. I've done a couple, actually. There is a trick and a tip and a method to it. So go into my tutorials for my playlist for that, and you will find a couple on clouds. It's not hard, but it does require a little patience and not being a perfectionist. So that's that. I'm very happy with the way that came out. So I like it. So now to the pictures that I did. As I said, my drawing skills are work in progress. Okay. So I was feeling brave one day, and I posted I posted this in the studio with Michelle Weber. She's a fantastic artist. Her water skills are unbelievable, and she can draw really well as also. So, but her water skills, that's mainly why I'm in the group. Her water skills are amazing. I highly recommend this group. There's watercolor. People post all kinds of stuff in there, from watercolor to acrylics, you name it. But watercolor is her specialty. So, but I did this one. I just totally freelanced it. I really like how it came out. I don't think I touched it up with pencils at all. It was just watercolor, and I got some shading and depth. I got depth up here. I think I did use some white, antique white ink tints, and I also used opaque white Selenier. I cannot afford most Selenier. I have very, 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 very little. Honestly, I can afford like a lot of what I have, to be honest, is Studio, and that's just because I'm still learning. And this is one of my tips for if you're just learning. Don't go straight out and buy all the expensive stuff like I did for a lot of things, especially with my pencils, my color pencils. Just buy the cheaper stuff until you learn what works for you, what you like. When you maybe upgrade your skills a little bit, to where you're feel a little more confident. That's when I started buying a little more things like that Selenier or opaque white, a few Winsor & Newtons. I have a few Daniel Smiths, and then the rest of my stuff is like student grade. So that if I make a mistake or something just doesn't work out, other than, my time, I haven't wasted some really super expensive product. That's just my personal advice for whatever it's worth. And if it works out great, hey, I did that with mostly student grade watercolor. And by the way, student grade, if I was to recommend a good student grade watercolor, I would say Cotman, which is, I believe, Winsor & Newton's student grade, and W.M. Graham is student / artist. It's somewhere's in there. Also Academy is good for student grade. They're all really pigmented. They're not professional, but they're really pretty good, especially if you're just learning and you're experimenting. I highly recommend these watercolors. They're really, really nice, and the prices are reasonable too. So, moving on to this one. The reason why these are so small is because I hadn't planned on adding to that. So, I love how that came out though. You see how it has sparkle in it? I had to cover some of that sparkle up with some soft Prismas and Holbeins because the glitter on the cap was so much. It was like, woof. It was exactly what I was telling you not to do. Too much of any one thing can sometimes be a bad thing. And in this case, there was so much glitter on this that it just looked ridiculous. I was like, nope. So, you know, I used the watercolor pencil to sort of tone it down a little bit. And I really love it. It's got a great shadow, which is all watercolor. It's got, you know, nice dimension in depth under the cap. It's got a proper shadow for the mushroom cap up here and down here. So it's got shading within here to, you know, make it a little round. So I was so happy with it, I decided to pull out some more brushes and just kind of do a few more. So this one is something you would do with what they call a rake, what you call a rake brush. Now this is a makeup brush, but it really looks really well for like if you have pan pastels and stuff. But the general shape is correct, okay? And you just take your rake brush and you kind of go down, get it in your paint, like say this is your paint, okay? And then this is the paper, and you just kind of dab it like that, and then you just kind of go down like that, and then you take your little brush, just move it a little at first, and a little more, and a little more, maybe go in just a little bit, and then move it out a little more, depending on what, you know, kind of tree you're after, excuse me. And then you can just finesse that with another smaller paintbrush, which is what I did. These, I didn't even sketch either one of these, any of these. I was really happy with the way they came out. This one's a lot of indigo, a lot of nice like cerulean blue. There's a little bit of purple in it. And, you know, I've got my nice little shadow going on. I really, I didn't do too much with the background, Ani. I just did a bare minimum for like shadows. I may come back in at one point and try to fill the sky in a little more, but yeah, I like it. You know, you have to be brave. And the last one is this one, and I'm very proud of this one. As you can tell, it has sparkle, but it's not like, oh my God, that's a lot of sparkle, you know. So I did my per usual. Now the thing that I did with this is that what made it hard was the motion in the flag. I had to add a little more down here with my pencils because I did not really curve the flag enough when I painted it out with the watercolor. I did not curve it enough to my satisfaction, so I went in with my Prismas, my Prismas, and I went in with it and just created some more curvature to it. Also, the linear opaque is also another thing that I did with this. What you want to do with something like this, especially where it has motion, is to take your like the Inktense, for example, do your base layer. Like say I did my darker I did my shadows first, and then I went in with my regular watercolor, and that way my shadows don't really entirely disappear. And I did the same for the shadow for the flag, and then I went over with my pencils and my little glitter pens. Now I know I mucked up the stars, sorry. Apparently this is my work in progress. There, I don't know. I'm still working on that, but either way, I really love how I was able to get the background, that kind of that night sky kind of feel, which is what I was after. I used a night green, indigo, a little blue green from, I think, Master's Touch. And I was able to kind of give that night sky vibe, which is what I was after. But the trick was to get it so that it was different than the flag. You know what I mean? To get the shading so that they both stand out, but they don't just blend together. And most American flags, the blue part is definitely a more of a brighter blue. So... but yeah, I was pretty happy. I did this for the 4th of July, and all in all, it came out pretty good. So, yeah. So So that is that, guys. That is all for today. Have a great one. Bye.